It gives you this feeling of freedom that you don't necessarily have in other parts of the world.
Meet Joe, an American who's been living in China for 18 years, working in top management roles. He took me for a walk through the streets of Guangzhou and shared what Americans often get wrong about life in China, why China feels safer than the US, and whether Chinese people are welcoming to foreigners. I'm Chernov, your insider to Expat Life. Dopa!
How do you think Americans and Chinese, are they similar to some extent, or they're like very different, the way how they think, how they make decisions and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. I mean, I would like to believe like at the core of us, we're all kind of human and we want to have our families and we need like the basic things internationally. But yeah, there's huge differences. The thing with my family is we're a very old family that lived in the US for generations and generations, but we still very much feel that we're like Mexican Americans, or like, you know, we have a culture of being like Mexicans. So we have our own food, like our language, are very close with our family. And I think that there's a lot more similarities to Chinese with my type of family than say some of your like more traditional American families. Like we're very close, we love food, we love to dance and laugh and sing, and I think that Chinese are very much like that as well. And so for me it was kind of like, it reminds me a lot more closer to culturally to where I'm at with Chinese families and the way they are than say if I was, you know, from a normal, I don't even know how you say it, normal, but like I'd probably say like a white American family.
What's your thoughts on the US as a being American, but not living in the country for 18 years? Like you probably have this helicopter view, you see what's going on in the US because from outside.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts and feelings about
like
US?
Probably the one thing that I noticed is that there's a bigger misunderstanding of what China is and how China actually works and functions. The US is very limited in their view and experience. So everyone thinks like, you know, we're out here, you know, on dirt roads getting pulled by a rickshaw or something, you know, not everyone. But from time to time, I'll have a lot of misconception of, oh, you live in China, what's that like, you know? But from afar, I think that, you know, I wish there was a bit more development in the US, like in certain areas, mainly like for one, infrastructure. Like you go back to the US and you must drive if you're there. Like there's no way you can really exist in public transport. But here you can get anywhere within the country or outside of the country very easily with public transportation, and then just overall convenience of everything.
So you mentioned the misconceptions that there are in the US about China. What are the biggest ones? That you mentioned that, okay, some people think it's undeveloped.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest, that it's very old and not clean, and I'd probably say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, you know, it's strange because when people ask me questions about the US, I really don't even know how to answer because I've kind of grown up professionally in this environment in Asia, and I do so much traveling in other parts of the world that the US is kind of just another destination that I visit from time to time, and not necessarily something that I feel like a huge part of, other than that, like my initial growing up and half of my life was there before, you know, but now it's kind of something that I don't feel so, I don't know, it's difficult to explain.
Do you have some, let's say, family or friends visiting you here in China for the first time, and then you see their impressions?
Yeah, like my mom, she and my sisters, like they've all been to China, and they are just completely impressed with everything in China that has to offer. And I remember one interesting comment, my mom's like, man, I feel like you can just basically do anything you want here. And I'm like, yeah, it gives you this, I guess, feeling of freedom that you don't necessarily have in other parts of the world.
Freedom, like what?
Like just, you know, you're just able to walk down your apartment and there's a store, taxis everywhere, take the subway, take the train, like, you know, I think maybe that might be a part of it. And then I think that as foreigners operating as expats here, we also get a little bit of a pass on some of the things, you know, so like, I don't know what the example would be, but like it's kind of, you know, people are a bit more friendly and helpful to go out of their way to like, you know, point you in the right direction if you're lost or, you know, something like that.
Because you're like a guest.
Yeah.
I guess also like your setup being a foreigner in the US versus being foreigner in China is different. Because in the US, immigrant, and you are
Yeah.
working your way to the green cards and then to the passport. Here is different. Here is you kind of foreigner forever in most of the cases. So it's probably different setup, different feeling.
Yeah, you'll never be able to be Chinese, and no matter how long you live here. I mean, I think now you can get your permanent residence card, and some people do, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a very Chinese-specific environment.
Does it bother you? Like you feel home here, or you still feel like temporary? Here?
No. In Guangzhou, I feel like this is kind of like my base and my home.
Yeah.
So like, even when I'm traveling for months at a time and like wherever I'm at, like it's always really great to come back to Guangzhou and see like everyone and everything. And luckily I worked with a lot of different Chinese companies, and so I have a lot of really great core friends that are from China and that are from here. And so it's like really great to have that like base built in, but also there's a lot of foreigners that have been here for ages as well. That numbers have kind of gone down. The numbers have gone down recently, but there's still, I guess, like a core of us. And so you met some of them while you're here, and I'm sure like even walking down the street, it's great that I bump into people that I know, you know, a city of 15 million people, and I'll just be walking the street, hey Joe, you know, so it's pretty cool that way.
So from the like visa standpoint, it's kind of it's okay. You can renew your visa every number of years, and then kind of feel permanent here.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because like every time you do your work permit, you basically have a work permit and then a visa and you renew it. But every time you go through that process, there's this like little feeling of anxiousness, like, oh, what if they don't give me my visa? You know, like what am I going to do with all my stuff, or like this or that? And it's never usually an issue, but it doesn't really feel like that's the one thing. Like it doesn't feel like I think that's probably one of the peace of mind of having like a permanent residence, is that you can really feel like, oh, I belong here, I live here for always. But yeah, it's not a problem. Just renew every 2 years usually.
Do you know cases when foreigners who's been here for some time, they got rejected to renew their visa?
I've heard of it. You know, I used to work at a law firm, and sometimes we would get some cases from time to time, but it's usually they're not following the rules according to what they should be. I mean, if you think about like immigration, visas, and policies, like I think for a long time, China was very lax and not so restrictive on that policy. You'd have foreigners that would come and live here, and then they'd go back on a tourist visa, they'd rent an apartment, they'd get a bank account, and then they would go to Hong Kong to renew their like 90-day visa and things like that. And so there was no other country in the world that you could do that, right? Or like that. So they're technically, maybe, well, no, you know, it's Philippines, Thailand, you know, these type of areas. But like you couldn't do that in the US. Like you can't just go and overstay your visa and just live, you know, and go back and forth in and out. And so a lot of the people that had problems or issues with their visa, I mean, is probably something that, I mean, to be fair, is not following the proper procedures or requirements anyway.
People accuse China of being like too restricted, too controlled. Do you feel it like living here?
I personally don't feel it, but I mean, if I was to say something that I do notice, and now that I travel a lot more, is like the internet is a bit restricted from time to time. And so it's just difficult to access like Western apps. And that being said, now that I'm maybe Chinese in a way, with all of my Chinese apps, sometimes when I'm traveling outside, they won't work either. So, I mean, I don't think it's just limited to the restrictions that China are imposing, but just kind of the way that the world is working. For example, like you can't make WeChat video calls or calls when you're in Dubai. When you want to pay for something on Alipay, you must be a Chinese national in order to use it outside of China. That in turn, you're here, there's no, I mean, obviously there's no Facebook, Google, you know, this type of thing. So there's restrictions, I guess, in that regard. But yeah, like I said, I feel very much that I'm able to do what I would like to. But at the same time, I think that everyone kind of has a sense of, you know, you need to behave, you need to do what's expected of you. And if not, there's going to be, you know, possible repercussions.
For me, it's funny because I'm on eSIM. So eSIM doesn't block any, so you don't need to have a VPN if you're on eSIM. So
yeah, and you're lucky you probably have a phone from outside, because if you buy a phone here, it's sometimes difficult to access an eSIM.
Right. No, I bought a phone in Singapore. So phone in Singapore plus eSIM, so I can I can do my Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp,
Yeah,
anything basically.
yeah.
No problem. I can imagine if you do business. I mean, if you work only within, operate only within the Chinese market, it's probably no problem for you. But if you have partners outside, contractors outside, clients outside, it's like it's a bit annoying.
Yeah, what's annoying for me at the moment is WhatsApp, like because I have like two types of groups of people I'm like chatting with on a daily basis, and like some of them are based on WeChat and some on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I turn on my VPN to use WhatsApp, then it'll like basically block all of my like messages in WeChat temporarily. So I have to like switch back and forth.
Yeah.
So, but these are like minor issues, and I don't mind so much.
So, like, based on your experience, what's the way to do business Chinese way, or like with Chinese people? What would be the main principles? Let's say for someone who is experienced in business, let's say in the US, but never done business in China, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I'd probably just say you have to be there, you know, cultivate the relationships and make sure that you know who you're dealing with, see, touch, feel the actual factory products, people, and make sure that it's a good fit, right? Because China is not for everyone.
No, it's not?
No, I mean, for sure not. If you're making something to sell to the US right now, it's probably not the place, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much basic business principles globally, internationally. I mean, I don't think it strays much.
I just guess in the US it's probably more transactional. Of course, relationships matter as well.
Yeah.
But it's more about making money and doing business versus here, I guess, it's my impression. It's of course about making money.
Yeah.
But relationships, sometimes it's like a bigger part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I'm not sure. I think everyone likes to make money here just as much. I'm not sure. You know, what's crazy is sometimes I get a little blurred because I've never really done so much business in the US, to be honest. Like,
it's hard to compare.
like, it's hard to compare when you've worked 18 years in China, and even when you're working here with people from the US, they have a very different mindset and a very different operation globally than, say, if you were trying to do business in the US specifically, right?
Do you have to drink heavily with your business partners in China?
I think in the early days I did a lot, and it was a bit more common. But yeah, I think it's not something that's required so much. But if you do, I mean, it's also a good way to kind of break the ice and build the relationship and have a good time with people.
Any crazy stories that you can recall from your past, like, I don't know, from business or from...
Yeah, I mean, no, I think like the early days you would have like the big lunches where you'd have at lunch, you know, and there wasn't really a lot of red wine. It was just like the white wine and the beer, and you would just, you know, sit next to a guy and just have to go around and cheers with everybody, the little glasses of baijiu. And so, yeah, I went through that phase for many years in the early days, but like not so much. But from time to time that still happens, and you kind of are able to do it, and it's fun. Yeah, nothing too crazy.
What would be your advice to someone who's never been to China and maybe have some negative thoughts about China? What would be, like, let's say someone living in the US, what would be your advice? Like, to come and see or
Yeah,
something?
definitely. I mean, you have to come and see it and experience it for yourself and kind of hold judgment and see what it's all about. But from my experience, most people that come to China understand very quickly that it's completely opposite of what they may have had an impression about or what they've heard. I mean, because you just look around, it's like a really great place, and so you have a great life and a good time.